And guess what?
What is going on? Tucker? What is happening?
When I'm not pretending to be friends with Sonic characters to cope with the harsh realities of being alive, I'm watching digital demon guard dogs make silly noises for my amusement. Yes, I have computerized brainworms in the form of liking VTubers. As someone who used to watch anime but hasn't in forever outside of one, God strike me down already, VTubers itch the scratch of the cute girls doing cute things subgenre I have neglected since I started watching them. Well, they hit all the right beats for me. I already know why freaks like you watch them. But on my side of the aisle, the whole appeal is the personas. It's heartwarming to see my future wives Fuwawa and Mokoko playing video games, talking to each other, and getting scared at random stuff. It's fun, and I like how relaxing it is. Because, if you haven't guessed by the title, I like Hololive. Wow, what a revelation for a VTuber fan to deliver. But I'm also kind of worried, and that's what we're here to discuss today. Because my opinion is so important, I'm going to present everything I talk about with authority. However, I have no real way of knowing if what I'm saying is true. You know how armchair psychologists will make video essays or multi-paragraph Reddit comments about criminals or politicians? That's what this is, but for a VTuber company. Because, from my limited viewpoint, I believe something is going on at Hololive. And by limited, I mean I've almost exclusively watched Fuwamoko streams for the last year, with my only glimpses at other talents being through their crossovers, alongside a few non-Pippa Phase Connect girls, nothing against her, it's just where the chips fell, and some indies too. Fuwawa and Mokoko Abiscard are my Oshis, and I am loyal to them and them alone. So consider this either a madman trying to understand how businesses work, or the world's sanest ruffian trying to see if his dogs are going to be okay. Either way, none of this is going to get us anywhere. I am simply an Eldritch God's pawn, created for the sole purpose of being destroyed. In August 2024, it was announced that Minato Aqua would be graduating from Hololive at the end of the month. This was, from what I can gather, a slightly shocking turn of events. The company had recently lost their Japanese head of content, Achan, who left at the end of June. And now, all in the sudden, a Japanese talent was graduating. Of course, the biggest reason this sent shockwaves across the VTuber world was because of two factors. First off, she was one of the more popular talents, even having a visual novel made about her, which I purchased at full price out of fear that it would be taken down with her. It was not, and I'll play it in 5 years if I'm lucky. The second was that Hololive has one of the best reputations when it comes to talent longevity. While there had been graduations, like Kiryu Koko, and terminations, like Ruffian, nobody big had left in quite some time. And here was Aqua, a very popular member of Hololive, graduating within 3 weeks of the announcement. But no big deal, right? Well, okay, heartbreak for some. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not weird for someone to leave their job after 6 years to go pursue something else. Except, that's interesting. Who's Yuki Sakuna? Regardless, her reasoning was that she wanted to live her life the way she wanted to, and that she was leaving the company for a new opportunity. And it's a reasonable thing to say. But here's the thing. She was the first domino in a long line of graduations that have happened ever since. Before the year was up, it was announced that both Amelia Watson and Sakamata Chloe would be graduating. However, this was more of a soft graduation, kind of like the way Rick Grimes, quote-unquote, left The Walking Dead. They're now considered affiliates of the company, still able to be sold on merchandise and coming back for big events, but no longer streaming regularly. This seemed like an interesting way for them to still be associated with Hololive without going away forever. But it did beg the question as to why two talents were suddenly leaving right around the same time, especially when one of them, Chloe, had only been streaming for a little over 3 years. That's a very small amount of time compared to other veterans who departed, and even Ame hadn't been around as long as some more seasoned people in the company, which is where all the theories started to pour in. But instead of going through a bunch of sexy rats, I'm going to psychotically adhere only to information that supports my personal theory. You see, on March 27th, 2023, Hololive's parent company, Cover, went public on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. This was, of course, brought up as a potential reason as to why talents were graduating at such a rapid rate, especially because some notoriously slimy companies like BlackRock had become major shareholders in Cover. Now, BlackRock as a singular company doesn't hold a lot of sway, but it appears the majority of the stocks are now held by investment companies instead of the people actually inside Cover. The CEO, Yagu, owns 38.8% in first place, while the CFO, Iko Fukuda, owns 4.19% in second. The majority of the company's stocks, and thereby company power, is held by investment groups or individuals, which means people outside of just the VTuber industry directly now have an important say in the direction of Hololive, and, by extension, what its talents do. Now, this wasn't something that could be avoided. According to my researchery notes, the company went public because the trajectory they'd been on over the last few years would have meant the entire thing would need to be shut down. It was a move done to save Hololive and to keep it going despite the money that was being lost. Again, this is the info I got, but truth be told, a popular VTuber group that was doing so well on the surface going public tells me something was going on behind the scenes. Otherwise, it'd be baffling for Yagu to give up the amount of power he had over the company. But the motto of every company is to always keep growing. No, there is no argument against it. This is what every company thinks, more so when your company is being publicly traded. The people involved want to earn more money every year, and the only way to do that is to gain more profits every single quarter. This was not an issue of money for Ame, however. Yes, I'm only talking about Ame here because I speak English, so this is my best reference personally. Like I said, this is all my opinion. I'm also going to be breaking the VTuber taboo of talking about reincarnations in this video, but that's because we're not analyzing this as strictly VTubing, we're analyzing this through a corporate lens. I say, coping with my decision to even make this video. Not long after her soft graduation, Ame was reborn as Doobie, and after a very big debut, she still maintains moderate success. What's interesting to note, however, is that she has half the number of subscribers as she did in Hololive. And yet, despite the massive risk involved in rebranding under a new persona, she took it. Basically, she decided to take a 50% dip in subscribers in order to not be a talent at Hololive anymore. Less if you consider the fact that there was no guarantee the people who liked her were going to find her again. Yes, she's still working on stuff for them behind the scenes, so she's still presumably earning money from them. What I mean by all this is, she's no longer performing for them. She's not acting for them. She's gotten a new job in that field, a new role, and she was willing to risk a lot because there was no way she'd hit Ame numbers as Doobie right away. And she's not the only one who did this either. Not long after Ame's departure, it was announced that Fauna would also be leaving Hololive behind. This time, however, it was in the form of a full graduation. We have a little more insight into why she left, however, with her explicitly stating that it had to do with disagreements with management. This had been hinted at a few times in the other graduations, but from what my dog-infused memory can recall, the discussion around management's role in all of this grew after her graduation announcement. This included speculation that she was angry at having to participate in more idol-focused activities. Singing, dancing, all the cute stuff. But she specifically stated that wasn't the disagreement she had with them. We're gonna put a pin in this and come back to it later. Much like Ame Doobie, Fauna was also reborn as a new VTuber, Nimmy Nightmare, and having seen her debut stream, I understand why people like her so much. God, how do I forgive myself for losing so much time? Regardless of my every other video existential crisis cropping up, it seems like whatever's going on behind the scenes at Hololive has some older talent deciding the company's future isn't for them. The direction they're going appears to be one primarily long-term members aren't too keen on following, and it's still happening right now. In March 2025, it was announced that Shion, a nearly 7-year veteran of Hololive, would be graduating at the end of April, the 5th consecutive graduation since Aqua departed in August. The 5th graduation, which would happen about 8.5 months after Aqua's was announced. Less than a year? Yeah, more like less than a pregnancy. What made this one so odd was that it happened just days before Hololive's Super Expo 2025 and 6th festival Color Rise Harmony, which Shion was participating in. The immediate concern was enough for Yagu to take to the website formerly known as Twitter to address concerns. He admitted that there were some aspects of the company that needed improvement, though remained vague. He also announced they'd be setting up ways for talent to speak directly to management about their grievances, a positive step in light of the sudden increase in graduations. Of course, this message was promptly buried by posts about the expo and performances, making the timing feel more suspicious. I understand Yagu is a sacred calf, but he's also the CEO of what's now a publicly traded company. I trust he has the talent's best interests in mind, but he also needs to weigh it against those of their shareholders. I'm not saying he's deprioritizing them, but I am saying that sometimes you have to do what's best for the talents or what's best for the company. Depending on the circumstances, you can't have it both ways. And I think those cracks were already starting to show, even before the mass graduation started happening. See, I've noticed a lot of change in Hololive over the last couple of years. I've been watching since Gura's debut, and before the dog stole my heart, I was regularly tuning in for her, Mume, and the Australian sex rat. And as much as I hate to say it, Fuwamoko and the rest of Advent's debut were when those changes started feeling more prominent. First off, to dissuade anybody from thinking I'm a Hololive hater, I love Advent, they're literally perfect. The only thing I don't like about them, and this may be controversial, is that there's not enough time in the day to watch everyone's streams in full all the time. For me, it's Fuwawa and Mokoko tied in first place, followed by Bibu, Shiori, and Narissa. All entertaining, all wonderful. And because I like them all, perhaps my bias is showing regarding things I've noticed from my small corner of the bigger company. After all, I've been neglecting the other 3 animal-themed talents I used to sink hours of my life into watching. So permit me a ramble, if you will, about the things I've seen in my limited capacity. You don't have to agree with me, but you do have to listen to me. Don't turn around. There have been many, many more grand-scale, major events at Hololive over the last 2 years or so. Sure, you had your concerts and your 3D lives and stuff like that, but there's also been a big push to make everything feel like an event. For instance, Advent Halloween was a big deal in 2023, with merch and even an audio drama on top of things. Fuwamoko, my only frame of reference, got a whole concert on their birthday this year. There was a crossover with the LA Dodgers that one time, multiple pop-up stores with Hololive merch. Beyond stuff in real life, there was Enigmatic Recollection, which had its own merch line and is, allegedly, going to be building into something bigger in the coming whenever the fuck. There's more merch surrounding special events like Valentine's, the summer, Christmas, what have you. I mean, shit, have you seen the number of voice packs they just keep pumping out? I mean, look at the art on this new one with my dogs in it. What the fuck? And also more extended sponsorships, like Fuwamoko playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For about a month. Not to mention their schedules in particular being taken up with a ton of recording and homework, no doubt prepping for even more big events happening later down the road. And, during Holo Expo, a new official mobile game featuring the talents was announced. I think you know where I'm going with this. The most reasonable, speculative idea I've seen regarding why older talents keep leaving Hololive is because the company is pivoting toward merchandise and paid events. Like Fauna said, it wasn't the idle stuff that had her disagreeing with management and making her want to leave. I think it was bigger than that. And I think that something bigger has to do with time management. There may be more large events happening for the company, but streaming isn't totally stopping because of them. If you look at most Hololive members, a lot of them are streaming pretty regularly, anywhere between 12 and 20 streams per month. But it's pretty obvious what the path to infinite monetary gain for the company really is. Get people invested in your talents through streams, prompting them to buy merch or tickets to big events. This means more big events while also maintaining a regular streaming schedule for all talents. That's a shitload of work, especially for a company who, 6 years ago, didn't even have annual concerts. A lot of the talents who are leaving joined when things were smaller. So, to me, it makes sense that a number of them would leave or go part-time. Problems with management, in my non-expert opinion, sounds like expectations of working beyond the limit of what a lot of older VTubers signed up for. Some of it being time management, but also feeling like it dilutes the purpose of what a VTuber is supposed to be. Feeling more like an advertisement instead of a personality. And as painful as this is to admit, I honestly think we're going to see effects of this far into the future. One sure sign that someone is probably dipping soon is their schedule. A number of the recently graduated talents slowed their schedules before announcing they'd be leaving, likely because they knew it was already in the cards and were gently signaling to their fans ahead of time. And unfortunately, I do have a feeling that Mume is probably next on the chopping block. Now, she could go the route of Gura, my first ever Oshi, and just become a Mickey Mouse-style mascot who streams occasionally. Yes, that's Cope, but fuck you, I really like her and I don't want her to go, despite all the signs pointing to her potential departure. Fuck, I never should have stopped watching her. Hey, Zed from the Gene Timeline here. I recorded most of the audio for this mess about 2.5 or 3 weeks before stitching it together. Just goes to show how seriously I've been taking this whole YouTube thing, huh? Regardless, on the night of March 27, 2025, Mume officially announced she will be graduating. And not the kind you can come back from either. Just like her genmate Fauna, this is permanent. I know, I blew my chance at being a prophet, but I really wasn't expecting an announcement so soon after Shion's. However, it seems like her graduation is more due to health issues than it is management, although she did mention internal misalignments with the company as a factor. I make mention of predicting Mume will graduate later in the video as well, so just for clarification, I didn't mention her while going through the timeline because it hadn't happened yet when I recorded this. Well, either way, we now return to your regularly scheduled shitstorm. But even Gura could be planning a possible exit soon, I say, wrapping myself in a tinfoil blanket to protect myself from the chumbuds who now wish to behead me. Not that I don't deserve it. I'm just saying, Senzawa, who is definitely not her, just so happened to change her long-defunct Zitter description to #1 fan of Gargura and unknown. Who else is she a fan of? Perhaps a sunflower. As for the newer talents, there's definitely a shift I've been feeling in the air when contrasting them to some of the more seasoned veterans of Hololive. While I can't speak much to the Japanese side of things, Hololive device was launched not long after Advent. While I don't watch them, so forgive me for any misunderstandings, I believe the purpose of the group is collaborative. Both subgroups, Regloss and Flowglow, are focused on group activities and collaborating with one another. At least that's what their description says. They've also seemingly become the main focus of the Japanese branch when it comes to launching new talents. Both the 2023 and 2024 new Japanese talents came from Device, almost as if the group is supposed to usher in a new focus for the company, like they're trying to condition viewers into seeing new talents as more collaborative with one another than old ones. And I'm not saying that as in, oh, these new girls play ball while these older ones don't want to play by our new rules. I mean that in the sense of seeing them together, almost as if getting audiences used to the idea of talents being together more often than they are apart, just like they are during their big events. And the same thing is happening on the English side of things too. Advent and Justice both have lore that connect to one another. When Advent debuted, there was a more concentrated effort to have them collaborate with one another than I think I'd seen in any other English gen before them. Hell, their collabs are even scheduled to be 2 hours long by the company themselves, something painfully obvious when people start running out of ideas in Gardic Phone. They also have a lot more collabs with people outside their groups, including Justice. Hell, there was that whole Advent or Justice Valentine's Day thing going on, once again accompanied by plenty of merch. Like I said, making everything a big event is a top priority, and the consistently collaborative nature of Advent and Justice, whether together or with others outside their groups, feels like a way to condition audiences into seeing the girls together, thus making them more liable to buy tickets to events where they're, well, together. After all, it's just like most of their streams. Again, I come to this with a tinfoil hat on my head that reads Advent across the top. I haven't seen much of Justice, and how do I put this? I don't really care to. Boko's Binted is funny and all, but I have my dogs. Can't really top perfection, and I just realized how much of a lunatic I sound like throughout this video. Unfortunately, we're over 3,000 words deep, and sunk cost fallacy means we have to keep going. Regardless of my Swiss cheese brain, the umbrellas of Device on the Japanese side, and the lore connections between Advent and Justice on the English make me think they're the next step, as it were, for Hololive. More collaboration, more planned events, more making each branch of the company feel like one big interconnected universe, making every group feel like a connected group instead of individuals that people get invested into on their own. I think Enigmatic Recollection is one example of this that incorporates older talents, while collabs push viewers into getting invested into multiple girls. Because if someone likes Fuwawa, Makoko, Shiori, Gura, and Mume enough that they'd buy their merch during special events, that's 5 times the amount of money made than having one person Oshi one of them. The same goes for if somebody likes every single talent in Advent or every single talent in Justice. They're gonna buy everybody's merch because they're not just a fan of one girl in the group. I believe that company-wide multi-Oshi pushing is one step of their search for more money, because it also means people who go to concerts are there for more than just one girl, which means more merch sold at these events, and it just keeps snowballing until you have tens of thousands of whales spending $1,500 a year per talent they enjoy. I genuinely believe more collaborative streams, more big events, and branching out into new mediums is the future Hololive is going for. More massive events, more interconnected talents, and more money to be made by people who are now emotionally invested in multiple talents. Except, a lot of this might be antithetical to what Hololive means for some. For example, when Hololive English first began, there wasn't really an emphasis on major events. There were collabs, sure, but they weren't as structured as the ones between Advent or Justice, or many that have happened over the last 2 years. Things were looser, and the biggest focus was on the girls being entertaining in their streams. And maybe my projection is showing, but to me, that really worked. I once spent 6 hours watching Gura play Amnesia Rebirth. The game was trash, but I was having fun. Specifically because me and the rest of chat were connected to Gura on a personal level. There wasn't some expectation for her to advertise any major events coming up, or any future collabs, or merch, or to cut off streaming at a certain time. It was just the chumbuds and Gura enjoying their time streaming together. This, of course, still happens. After all, you can't really sell your talents individually if they aren't streaming as individuals. But I do believe there's a push for newer talent to collaborate more and to participate in more major events, something that does impact older talent who are going to be expected to evolve as the company grows bigger and the talents get more interconnected. This event-focused shift, whether it be through new songs, audio dramas, concerts, merch lines, video games, whatever, is clearly happening. More stuff is being pushed out, whether as a result of having more talent or a slow shift toward bigger events. And it's reasonable to presume that, if my theory about what's happening at Hololive is correct, it's something some talent aren't going to mesh with. This is not me saying that this is bad, and that Hololive is going to become a black company, and that Sonic is the Iblis trigger. Silver the Hedgehog is literally me. Well, that last part is true. What I am saying is that as Hololive has been growing as a public company, I've noticed a larger push toward things that will get fans to spend a lot of money. And these things are probably going to get more frequent as the company attempts to make a zigzaggy green line keep going up. And because these big events are happening on top of talent still being expected to stream, with more time coordination between their co-stars likely factoring in too, some might not want the workload. Some talents might enjoy streaming more than they do working on collaborative projects or shilling merchandise, and they might feel impeded by having to split their focus between what they want to do and what they have to do. I cannot speak for any talents themselves, obviously. Every situation is different, and I'm just a crackpot theorist clinically analyzing Hololive as a company. But I know if I were in a situation like that, I'd probably be demanding a hefty fucking raise, or I'd be walking. And if it was too much on my mental or physical health, then see you later, alligator. 2 reincarnations have already taught me I'm going to be fine without you. Again, I don't know everything, but it wouldn't surprise me if demand for participation in major events was a deciding factor in many graduations that have happened already and many more to come. Seeing as I don't have the professional tact for accurate clairvoyance, I can't say for certain what Hololive's future looks like. If my expert theory is correct, I think Advent, Justice, and Device are going to be fine. We're probably not seeing anyone on any of those teams graduate anytime soon unless outside factors come into play. But I do worry about older talents like Mume and Gura, who don't stream that often anymore. I worry about Ina sometimes too, but she's been streaming more often lately. Crony, on the other hand, look, no more doom posting, okay? I don't think we're done with graduations, truth be told, and I think it's going to happen in a staggered fashion to keep people from being upset by a mass exodus. Changes to Hololive, no matter if I'm right or not, are coming, and it's only a matter of time before the full force of them is revealed, no doubt in the coming years once the talent recession has subsided. This doesn't mean the end of Hololive itself. Talents like Advent and Justice, however, appear to be paving the way for its post-public company structure. More collabs, more merch, bigger events. I've been saying events fucking 12,000 times in this stupid video. I am cautious about what this means for the future. I do worry that, eventually, the company will try and go quote-unquote mainstream and start doing normal cattle bullshit on a regular basis. Like getting a sponsorship deal with Ubisoft for Assassin's Creed Shadows or something akin to that. But those days have yet to arrive, and Yagu's statement after Shion's graduation announcement makes me hope against reason the company can repair its relationship with some talents who might be on the cusp of departure. After all, without certain talents, you lose a good chunk of your fan base. I don't think I'm optimistic about what this means for Hololive over the next few years, but I'm not pessimistic either. More a middle ground that makes me hope that, if constant big events are the contentious reason people keep leaving, they can find an amicable solution. And yes, everything you've just heard was cope from before Mume graduated. But now that she has, and that it's happening so close to when Shion's leaving too, man, I'm still trying to stay positive. But I am fucking worried. Like, when a talent leaves a company like Hololive, they kinda take a piece of that with them. And I'm not just talking about the huge chunk of fans whose regular purchases of merchandise and tickets are gonna evaporate. I'm talking about the soul of the company, the heart of what makes Hololive, Hololive. It's the talents. And if you're putting anything above the audience's natural connection to the talents through their streams, then you're fucked. Nobody is going to care. All these big events don't mean anything to anyone if nobody cares about the entertainers entertaining them. Because at the end of the day, whether they're idle guard dogs or gaming rocks or whatever the fuck it is Hachima does, it's been 5 years and I still don't know. At the end of the day, people are here for the characters they grow connected to. And as positive as I'm trying to be with these technical explanations about what seem to be changing, I get this bad feeling in the pit of my stomach that we are far from done. Based on what I see between graduations and this push for more and more and more, I don't want Hololive to forget where they came from. I don't want the company to forget that its audience's connections to their talents, as individuals, makes them successful. Without that foundation the company was built on, everything falls apart. So, having convinced myself of a truth in light of not having one, I can do nothing but hope for the best. And though the company's attempts at infinity will, inevitably, continue, I hope they remember what gave them that ability to reach so high in the first place. Because without growth, there are still VTubers. But without VTubers, there is no Hololive.